Hello Tenno, my name is Rebecca Ford and I am going to walk you through all things update 29.10, Corpus Proxima, and the new Railjack. This video is really a video guide to our dev workshop that we released. Our dev workshop covers 4 major things with the new Railjack, which is essentially a full rework of our Railjack content. There's a lot, and the whole point of this video is to give you not only a narration of the workshop, but also a video reference to put into context just what's changing. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, first things first, what's going to change on login? The first notable change is that all things Railjack are just more accessible. Oh, well that's not good. I might leave this in just because I clearly misspelled my password. Anyway, so the first things first is that Railjack is simply more accessible. And that comes in one of 2 ways. The first way is that if you actually never built your Railjack, you may have been challenged by the amount of resources it took or the time it took to just wait between parts. Maybe you felt you didn't have the time. That's all been cut back. Resources have been reduced and time has been reduced, which simply means less grind and less waiting. We also have done something that is a little bit of a paradox that we didn't have this in the first place in our free-to-play game, and that's we added it to the market to buy for platinum. So whether or not you have bought your platinum or traded for it, you will be able to simply purchase a Railjack from the market. This is something that you can just hop in and grab it if you don't want to do the quest or any of the waiting that a free path would have. But whatever you choose, up to you. You just have more options now. The second major change to cover when it comes to logging in is the complete shuffle of Avionics to mods. So Avionics are gone and they've been converted to mods. And the way you mod your Railjack has actually changed a little bit. So all your Avionics have turned into mods. But now the question is, where do you put your mods? We've changed the concept of modding Railjack by introducing something called the Plexus. So the Plexus is an item unique to you that no matter whose Railjack you go on, whether yours or someone else's, it brings your loadout with you. So you're no longer sort of held hostage by what battle mods or battle avionics your host's Railjack has, because you can bring your own. So for example, on login, players will have a way to configure their Plexus right at the front and center of their orbiter. So if I go into my orbiter's Plexus mod now, I can see the following. First, I can see that the Plexus has an aura slot. That means I can bring all of these attributes to whatever Railjack I go on, whether it's mine or someone else's. So in your squad of 4, you all get an aura slot. So one of you could bring a defensive one, some of you could bring an offensive one. It's up to you, and it works towards the Railjack's general co-op nature. Then there's the 8 integrated slots that simply are the avionics you may have been familiar with. So whether you want your turret damage to be better, you can simply slot these in and they'll work for you regardless of whose Railjack you're on. Then there's the battle avionics. So these are the powers, but now it's different. You can, by default, bring your powers with you. So a Railjack host no longer determines what you can cast when you're using the side guns or the pilot seat. You bring your own avionics. So I can use Void Hole, Particle Ram, and Munitions Vortex simply because I have it on my Plexus. And then there's the tactical avionics. These are the ones that when you pull up your tactical menu, you can cast. And again, now you bring your own. So all of this has been moved to the player level so that you can have more choice on what you bring to a Railjack mission. Another little bonus is now you have configs so that you can actually have a more diverse loadout depending on, say, what type of content you're playing. So that's all there as well for you to explore. So this is the switch from avionics to mods, and this is the introduction of the Plexus. So when you log in, you're going to want to make sure that you check out your Plexus and get modding. Otherwise, you're going to be going in empty-handed. Now let's talk about Dirac to Endo. Dirac was the resource you used found only in Railjack to rank up your avionics. Since avionics are gone, Dirac is also gone. And in its place is Endo, the currency we know and love to rank up our mods. That means that when you log in, all of your Dirac will turn into Endo. It's going to be just swapped, and any Dirac you invested in your grid will be reimbursed. So if, like me, you maxed your avionics grid, you will get back 39,000 Endo, not Dirac. So this will be something that on login you'll notice, and you'll want to make sure you go in and rank up your Railjack mods using Endo, not Dirac, because it's gone. Now let's talk Intrinsics 2.0. We've made a lot of changes to the intrinsic system. You still earn your intrinsics simply by playing Railjack, But once you log in, you must respect them. So if you had fully maxed out all your intrinsics, you're going to need to go back to your intrinsics management, and you'll be starting from 0 across the board. Let's take a look at how far I've gone since the respec. I still have lots of intrinsics points to spend, and I've only done about half of them because I wanted to take this opportunity to show you what's changed. This isn't going to be the full list in the video. The dev workshop will have that, but this will at least explain to you some of the broader changes that come and why. Firstly, we wanted to connect more to all the main components of Warframe. As you know, Necramechs exist, and they are old war technology. Railjack is old war technology. So we've started to provide some connective tissue insofar as some of the more underwhelming intrinsics from before have turned into things like deploy mechs in all missions. So yes, that means what you think it means. If you progress through your tactical intrinsics ranks, you'll be able to deploy your mech wherever you want, whenever you want. And other intrinsics will either make your mech stronger. So for example, the engineers will be able to have a buffed mech, as you can see here, and so on. We've also removed some of the less popular intrinsics and tried to replace them with something a little more fun. So rank 10 piloting used to be pretty underwhelming, and now it's hopefully something that's a bit more skill-based and a great pilot can pull off because you can do a Railjack blink, so you can teleport your Railjack. And of course, some very big news on this screen that people have been waiting a long time for, which is the debut of the command intrinsic. Now, I've already ranked mine up to 2, so what that means is I've already unlocked the first slot, and now I can command my crew to do various tasks. So once you've unlocked your first crew member, the first thing you're going to want to do is go to Ticker. So let's go visit Ticker and see what she has to say. We have made it to Ticker on Fortuna, and hiring your crew is really as simple as talking to Ticker and clicking the Hire Railjack crew members. Now, every day there will be new crew members available for hire, and who you hire can depend on what you're looking for in your crew, and their prices are determined by how much a certain syndicate likes you. So for example, Steel Meridian and I get along great, which means I actually get to hire Kudus at a discount. But when it comes to New Loka, Feline and I can hire Feline, but at double the price that someone loyal to New Loka would. Of course, let me know in the comments who your syndicate is so that you can, battle it out with other Tenno on which syndicate is indeed the best. Spoiler. Well, I won't say who it is. But nevertheless, I can hop on in here, take a look at Kudus, and see that they actually have quite a high endurance stat, whereas Feline has a high gunnery stat. So what that means is the different competencies of different crew members will be something that you can upgrade to a degree. So over time, you'll be able to assign a certain amount of points to increase their skills and competencies. So for now, I'll hire this very apt gunner and take a look at managing them in my dry dock. I've made it to my dry dock, and what you will find is dry docks have been added to certain relays. So if you never built a dry dock in your clan dojo, no problem, you can go ahead and head to the 2nd or 3rd tier relays to manage your crew and all things Railjack. So my crew are here. I have a handful of crew that I've already hired, but I'll go ahead and equip my recently hired Feline, and I can take a look and see that I can in fact train them to have a bit more competencies. So we know they're a great gunner, but maybe I want their endurance to just be a tad higher, and I'll just go ahead and do that. Obviously this is placeholder because it is the dev build, but as you can see, the points have been assigned and Feline is feeling pretty good about their endurance and gunnery. You can also equip your crew with weapons that you just have in your arsenal. You can customize them and much, much more. It's worth noting that the crew is designed for solo play, meaning that if you want to go with yourself and up to 3 crew members, you're free to do so. Once you start doing public matchmaking, however, public Tenno will take the slots of your crew. So if you want a full AI crew, go solo. Otherwise, as other Tenno join your squad, they'll be taking the place of the AI crew members. The next part of our dev workshop is the inclusion of a new component for Railjacks. The hull materials will sort of be the new health and armor values for your Railjack. So while a player's Plexus will have aura mods that speak to upgrading these stats, the Railjack itself will have this part built in, so it's not entirely riding the upgrade system of Avionics or mods. So this is something you can look to earning or researching before you go out on your first mission. We're also making improvements to matchmaking. Right now in Railjack, when you try and start a mission from certain parts of the star chart, you'll often be told to go to your dry dock. It's a bit more difficult to join a public squad or to start your own compared to core Warframe, so we're just making sure it obeys the type of logic that the base game has when you wish to start a mission, meaning that when you go and click a node, if you're on public and there's no squad there, you'll simply start your own rather than having to go all the way out to a separate start chart. This is a huge streamlining effort to make sure that more people can connect or just access Railjack faster. Now to talk early adopters. On login, you may be eligible for some rewards. If you're in a clan that's built a dry dock, on login you will get the exclusive commemorative Railjack statue. This statue is something that signifies that you were part of the original Railjack fleet, and you can put it anywhere you'd like in your dojo. As for individual rewards, there's 3 tiers, and it depends on how much wreckage you've actually made. The full table is available in the dev workshop, but a summary is essentially Tier 1 gets a certain amount of mods and resources, Tier 2 gets everything Tier 1 gets, plus more Endo and a lot more resources, and Tier 3 gets everything Tier 2 and Tier 1 gets, and a legendary core, Umbra Forma, and much, much more to help you on your Warframe journey. The last thing to talk about is armaments. One change we've made to armaments is the actual resource costs associated with researching and finishing your wreckage. So the simple goal here is less grind, and what that means is resource costs to build the wreckage you find is much cheaper. So this is just a minor change, but it's one that will let you build, experiment, and valence transfer weapons much easier without so much of a resource cost. Now we are on to part 2, what's changing in missions. First, we'll board our Railjack to take a look at the reconstructed interior. Certainly the first thing you're going to notice when you're playing Railjack after this update is that the inside is smaller. So what that means is we've taken what we felt to be too big a space that was a little too ineffective to traverse and made it smaller. This is pretty obvious if you're familiar with your Railjack, but if not, I'll explain a little bit about what's changed. First, there used to be an additional room here before you could get to your cargo bay. The cargo bay down here is now accessible right below the Arcwing Slingshot. The Arcwing Slingshot is still at the top of your ramp here, and you can still access it the same way you used to, but now you can immediately drop down to the cargo bay. That's one of the more dramatic changes on the back end of the ship, but at the midpoint of your ship, you'll notice the turrets have moved. So no longer are the turrets flanks of the ship, they're actually now in line with the pilot's flight. So before, you used to be perpendicular, and now you're parallel. Now that we find ourselves in a mission, we should take a look at what's changed beyond just the layout of the Railjack. The first change is something pilots have been requesting, and that's the removal of the stamina bar. Yep, that means you can go and sustain your sprint speed for as long as you want. Skilled pilots will be able to not only go fast and maneuver, but also make the most of their drift. They'll be able to navigate obstacles at high speeds, while making sure they can get from point A to B by optimizing their drift and sustained movements. An important note about this, though, is pilots kind of have it all. They can shoot, they can cast powers, and they lead the charge of where your Railjack's going. For this reason, we made one minor change, which is that pilots cannot shoot and sprint at the same time. It's a minor change that we'll be watching feedback for, but generally speaking, we wanted to make sure that gunners had a really good role while the pilot was out there navigating the Railjack throughout all the missions. So, pilots, you're pretty good at driving around your Railjack, you're great at casting powers, but the one change is that you just can't shoot while you're sprinting. Another thing that's changed is the change from group resource pools to individual. We've taken the onus off the squad as a whole to manage resources for everyone and moved it back to the player. So that means things like Revelite are now managed by each individual player aboard the Railjack. So your ammo pool belongs to just you. So it's not just Revelite that's changed, it's also energy. Flex energy, which is what you built to cast your battle avionics, is gone. It's removed from the game. What's replacing it to cast your battle mods is your existing Warframe loadouts. So that means Warframes with flow or prime flow, your energy pool will now determine what you can cast when you're piloting or side gunning on your Railjack. So things like Xenuric's energy regeneration, energy restores, Warframe abilities that help you regenerate energy will all be helpful as you are now just using core Warframe to sustain and cast powers with your Railjack. So, for example, if I wanted to drop an energy restore here, take my Excalibur Umbra, hop on the pilot seat, my Warframe's energy pool is now fueling the Railjack. So every ability I cast comes straight from my Warframe's energy pool. We've also changed what Malfunctions and Hazards do to your Railjack. Before, things like fire damage would deal damage to the ship over time. And now we've changed it so that they have different gameplay effects. So while there will still be hazards that you will want to take care of, they have a bit more of a different role in what happens to you and your Railjack if you leave them there over time. Another thing that's changing with Railjack in missions is the unification of damage types. So when we launched Railjack, what we did was we made Railjack versions of damage types, things like Ionic and Plasma. What these were just Railjack versions of the damage types you had actually already spent time learning. Impact, Puncture, Slash. These are all coming to Railjack. What that means is everything you've learned from your base elements to your physical types will be making an appearance on all weaponry in Railjack combat. So the Railjack types are gone and the unified existing core Warframe damage types are here. The last section of part 2 is talking about node changes. So when we say node changes, what we mean is node changes to what you know to be Earth, Saturn, and Veil Proxima. There's some choice there for nodes, but there's not really a lot of meaningful choice, with the only option being skirmish, or at least it seems that way until you memorize what points of interest live on what nodes. And then what? It comes down for us to too much repetition of a very small set of nodes and a lot of Railjack just being flat out ignored. For what we believe to be the healthier new direction for Railjack, we are making some changes by removing some of the existing Grineer nodes. The addition of the Corpus Proxima regions will introduce many new types of missions to play, and they'll say more than skirmish. We'll also be adding some Corpus regions to the Veil Proxima, meaning that there will be higher level content of both factions in the furthest reaches of space. And generally speaking, this does mean that the Gian Point node is going away. And we don't make that decision lightly, and we hope that there is an understanding of why that particular node, among others, have been removed for Railjack's health. The reasons really do come down to taking what was good about Gian Point, which was a quick turnaround and a high affinity reward, and trying to put it into the objectives within Railjack itself so that the diversity of content gets played more than just one node over and over again. Now part 3, what will keep you playing with this update? There's a lot to it because Corpus Railjack has come. Corpus Railjack not only brings new Proxima regions with varying difficulty, it also brings the strongest integration yet of core Warframe to Railjack content. So what that means is you'll be playing a Warframe defense mission, but you'll have all of Railjack around it to get you more affinity and more rewards and just a different experience. We'll also have tried and true like Exterminate. So this is another, one of the first Warframe mission modes I think we ever released has now arrived to Railjack with all of the Railjack wrapping to it. And then there's 2 other things that are new to the Corpus Railjack regions. The first is Orphix is back. So this means that the Orphix Venom event, which had your mechs and your Warframes and your operators playing with the operation on the build, is now here permanently in Railjack. What that means is you can go through varying difficulties if you start in Venus or want to go all the way out to the Veil, so that you can earn arcanes within the missions. So this is an alternate path to earning arcanes if you don't want to do Eidolons, or perhaps while it's day during the Plains of Eidolon. What this also means is that in one mission, you're using your Railjack, your Warframe, your Operator, and your mech. So it's certainly the combination of all things Warframe. And we also have a brand new mission type. Volatile is a mission type that is pretty co-op intensive in that you have to be paying attention on how to blow up the reactor of a Corpus ship and then, of course, end by perhaps taking down the ship itself. The last section of our workshop, what comes next? Well, there's quite a few things. First, you may have noticed that we didn't mention Void Storms or Relics as new content in the new Railjack, and that's because we're actually moving it to update 30. There's just too much, frankly, as you can probably tell by the length of this video and pages, that including Void Storms and Relics would probably put some of the quality at risk, more so than all of these changes already have. So it's okay though. We think thematically, in fact, we know thematically that the Void Storms are going to be extremely related to Call of the Tempestarii, which is the name of Update 30. Sevagoth and his quest are firmly placed in Void Storms, so it'll make sense to release it all at once. What you can expect with Void Storms is the ability to crack relics in Railjack. So the relic hunting and the relic cracking using Fisher missions will be possible in Railjack when Void Storms launch. So you'll be able to take to the skies instead of sticking to the main star chart, depending on what you want to do. Another thing, of course, to look forward to is Update 30, Call of the Tempestarii. This update is a classic Warframe quest. It's going to take you to the far reaches of Void Storms and Railjack as a solo quest to learn about Sevagoth and the Tempestarii and much, much more. There may be a little hint of some upcoming villains to come as well in this quest. And when I say hint, I mean Corpus Liches, aka Queenpins, which is going to be more in the update 30.5 realm of content. So update 30 will come, it will bring Sevagoth, it will bring a quest and a few more things. And then down the road, we will have Corpus Queenpins launching, which of course will bring a whole bunch of new characters and personalities to fall in love with, as well as new weapons, new ephemeras, and new boss fights in the Railjack arenas. So you can look forward to all of that and more beyond the update that we have for you in the next couple of weeks. We should mention that the PC player base is getting update 29.10 and that the console player base is getting update 30 and all of this at once. So the way it's going to split out is PC is going to be receiving update 29.10 first. Then all platforms at the same time are going to get update 30. So Call of the Tempestarii and the lore content within it will be celebrated as a community rather than staggered. But the console community will receive all of this and that lore content in one go. So it's going to come in PC in the next 2 weeks. Hopefully you made it through this video, and hopefully you can read the dev workshop if you want more details on anything I talked about here today.